very much needed online webinar devoted to dance beyond the pandemic. What is the reality for the world of dance? The art form, the practitioners, the audience, the producers, the dance lovers, the educators, as a result of this incredible situation that we've been forced to enter this year. Today's event is the first in a series presented by the Global Foundation for the Performing Arts. It's a public webinar curated by us in partnership with the Secretariat for the UNESCO Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions. It's part of the ResiliArt movement, and I really want to add my advocacy for this movement to bring voices that perhaps are not always heard to the table and to a wider audience. Today's public webinar is actually broadcast through Facebook Live, through a virtual conference room on the Zoom platform. And I'd also like to welcome in particular our many guests in China who are watching through other services. We have a fantastic lineup of experts today, and we will be addressing some questions and having a debate. We will then follow with questions and a general discussion from the outside listeners. So we welcome a conversation. That's what the point of this movement is, to encourage discussion and reinforce the status of the artist and remind the world that this pandemic is affecting many people in many, many ways. So without further ado, I'm delighted that we have with us somebody very special, in fact, somebody quite crucial to this ResiliArt movement. Delighted that we're welcoming Sari Matilda Machimura, who is joining us today from UNESCO, from the Secretariat for the UNESCO 2005 Convention. And I would like her to say a few words to us and you, and also to sort of reflect on the ResiliArt movement, which she was crucial in helping to instigate. So, Sari, I pass the microphone to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. Thank you, Benjamin, for this introduction. It is an immense pleasure for us, the Secretariat of the UNESCO 2005 Convention, to be part of ResiliArt Dance Beyond the Pandemic. On April 15th, World Art Day, UNESCO launched ResiliArt, a global movement for artists and cultural professionals. From the beginning, the vision of ResiliArt was extremely clear: to capture the devastating impact of the current health crises on the cultural industries around the world, not only through the perspectives of the usual suspects, like major cultural institutions and organizations, but also and especially through the voices of artists, precisely because they have been suffering from the lack of social and economic protection mechanisms in the face of this unprecedented crisis. The UNESCO Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions, which may sound a little mouthful, is in essence about realizing a world where diverse forms of human expressions, including dance, music, cinema, and literature, can thrive and their creators fairly treated and compensated. Through ResiliArt, we're working towards this vision despite, or rather because of this threat against diverse cultural expressions today. Since its launch, ResiliArt has been embraced by countries across the world, and in the span of 1 month, more than 20 debates have been organized from Uganda to Colombia, Algeria to Panama, Georgia to Thailand, Italy, Egypt, and beyond. More than 30 countries are expected to follow. Today's debate, ResiliArt Dance Beyond the Pandemic, marks the 1-month anniversary of this growing movement. And it feels very appropriate that we get to mark this occasion with a debate with a diverse panel of artists from regions across the world. Last but not least, I would like to welcome everyone, the panelists, as well as the audience watching from your homes around the world to the ResiliArt movement. I wish you a productive discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sari. It's a pleasure for us as the Global Foundation for the Performing Arts to support your movement. And I would personally like to say we're very proud to be a partner of the convention and a signatory to the convention for the 2005 convention and your secretariat. So we're delighted to join forces.
Thank you.
It's now my pleasure to introduce our panelists for this afternoon's debate. And I will do that in alphabetical order of surname. So there's no priorities. All voices are equal and valuable. What I will do is I will read out a short biography for each panelist, and then they will say hello. So if I may begin, first we have Nina Ananyashvili. She's a Georgian ballerina and the artistic director of the State Ballet of Georgia. She has been named by the Daily Telegraph as one of the 12 greatest ballerinas of all time. And in 2002 was named Best Ballerina of the Year by the US Dance magazine. Nina has been a prominent fixture of the Soviet, Russian, and Georgian ballet scene for decades. Shortly before the fall of the Iron Curtain in 1987, a New York Magazine critic praised Nina as the best thing about the Bolshoi's Giselle, whether she appeared in the title role or as Queen of Willis. I welcome Nina Ananyashvili.
Thank you, welcome. Hello for everybody.
Thank you. Next, we are joined by Frank Andersen. He is a Danish principal dancer who was 2 times artistic director of the Royal Danish Ballet. From 1985 until 1994, and then again between 2001 and 2008. He was also the artistic director for the Royal Swedish Ballet from 1995 until 1999. He is a director for the Danish choreographer August Bournonville, and his ballets are teaching, staging, and producing these productions for ballet companies and ballet schools worldwide. Frank Andersen has 3 times been the chairman for the jury for the Prix de Lausanne Ballet Concours, as well as the Shanghai International Ballet Competition and the Beijing Dance Academy Invitational Competition. Frank Andersen is a commander of the Danish Dannebrog Order and was knighted by Queen Margaret. Frank.
Well, very nice to be here. Looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our third speaker and panelist joining us today is Madeleine Orr. Since August 2018, Madeleine is the artistic director of the Finnish National Ballet. She has a profound experience from 16 years in the role of artistic director for the Royal Swedish Ballet, and prior to that, the Hong Kong Ballet from 2009 to 2017. As one of Sweden's leading ballerinas, Madeleine became renowned for her engaging style and dramatic talent. In 1995, Madeleine was honored with the title Dancer of the Royal Swedish Ballet by His Majesty King Carl Gustaf. Madeleine.
Thank you for being able to join you here.
Great, thank you. To follow, we have Gary Trinda. Born in England, Gary Trinda trained at the Royal Ballet School, Rambert School of Ballet, and Maurice Béjart MUDRA. As a dancer, he worked with the Scottish Ballet, Les Grands Ballets Canadiens de Montréal, and London City Ballet. Gary's extensive career includes 6 years as artistic director of Hong Kong Ballet and 2 years as director of dance at South Africa's Napak Dance Company. He was appointed director of the New Zealand School of Dance in 1998. Gary holds a master's degree from the Trinity Laban Conservatoire of Music and Dance and an advanced diploma in education from Newcastle University. Since 2011, Gary has assumed the role of president of the jury for the Asian Grand Prix Ballet Concours in Hong Kong. Gary was made a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit in 2013 for his services to dance. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. And our final panelist joining us for this discussion this afternoon is Jury Regina Zhu, Director and Professor of the Ballet Department at the Beijing Dance Academy. A visiting fellow of the Harvard Kennedy School in America. She holds a PhD degree from the China Academy of Art, a master's degree of the American University, deputy of the 15th and 16th session of the NPC of Haidian District, Beijing. She's a member of the All China Youth Federation, member of the Youth Federation of the Central State Organs, member of the Western Returned Scholars Association, member of the Chinese Dancers Association. A former principal dancer of the National Ballet of China, Regina starred in plays including The Red Detachment of Women and Swan Lake, Don Quixote, Nutcracker, Sleeping Beauty, Gilles, and Balanchine's Serenade. She served as the principal dancer of the Ballet Theatre of Maryland in 1999 and the assistant artistic director and prima ballerina in Maryland Ballet Theatre from 2000 to 2004, and the principal of the Maryland Dance School. Regina.
Thank you, Mr. Benjamin. Very nice to be here and very nice to see you all.
Wonderful. Thank you all indeed for taking time to join us. I'm delighted, and it's very important to us that we have a wide geographic spread for this discussion, because the COVID-19 crisis affects us all in various ways across the entire globe. It's also very important to us that we have a wonderful mix of educators, dancers, artistic directors, and industry leaders with us today to reflect on the impact. I'll say a very short word about us, and then we will begin. My name is Benjamin Woodruff. You will hear I'm also part of this geographic mix. I'm Australian, but based in Europe. I have many years' experience of helping younger artists, particularly in the classical music field, through international classical music competitions. I'm the president of the Global Foundation for the Performing Arts, which exists to provide valuable artistic education and professional support in service of those in the performing arts and fostering a global community for this exact type of cross-cultural exchange. Some of our programs at the moment include the China International Music Competition and the Global Music Education League. Wonderful. So let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. Let's have a discussion and let's consider the reality for dancers at this moment in time. I want to start with a statement. Where are the dancers? While the devastation of our industry brought by the pandemic is uncontested, the voices of dancers and choreographers have been largely out of the spotlight. In times of crisis, we need art more than ever. People in self-isolation singing and dancing together from balconies showed us that culture and creativity give us the power to stand united. Art is resilient, art makes us resilient. And so let's consider how we move through and beyond this situation. Now I would like to present our first question to our panelists and receive their reflections. The first question for today is a large one. What did COVID-19 reveal about the state of dance, about the state of ballet, about the state of your art form? I put that to the floor and I invite Nina Aniashvili to respond first. Thank you, Nina.
One more time, hello everyone, and thank you about this wonderful conversation. Of course, I think we all is in a very difficult situation. because ballet needs space, ballet needs theater, ballet artists, everybody needs to perform. So now in my country, situation not that bad. So we don't have very much people who is dying or something, but we are stopped already 2.5 months. So everybody working in the house, we give online classes, but you know, this is not same and not like we wanted. So, and this is very difficult today to work out, to be in the shape, but we try our best so far, and then we hope the end of May our government give us possibility to go back to theater and start working. And what will be rules, we don't know yet. I'm thinking so it will be impossible to get a lot of people immediately in the studios, but maybe we can split them. Maybe we can do like special ideas, so we need to somehow be ready to change a little bit our situation, because now we are nearly everybody stopped. All our tours is, thanks God, is moved from next year. And of course, audience, it will be most difficult to keep audience. And what we do, we put it our performances in the our Facebook so people can see. So it's something like this. So step by step, we try to be positive a little bit.
It makes perfect sense. Madeline, would you like to respond to question 1?
Okay. I thought first it's important to know, because we are all so different and represent so different conditions, that in the Finnish National Ballet we are around, we are 74 dancers and 12 in the youth company, so quite a large number, 86 dancers. And we are working in a big opera house where we share it with singers and orchestra and workshops. So in the house itself, it's around 550 full-time workers plus extra workers. And I mean, that's important in these times where you can't be that many in the same house. What is good for us, of course, is as a base, we have government funding. So in that respect, we are rather safe, if you could say so. But of course, now we realize how vulnerable we are. Professional dancer, their bodies are their instruments, and it's very physical, and we are always close to other people, very, very close. And we are also working in big groups, everything we're told we shouldn't do now. And dancers like Nina mentioned, we are used to working in a big space, rooms that are maybe 15 times 15 meters. And now we sent home to each dancer a little dance mat so they can work at home. And it's like 1.5 times 2 meters. So it's 100th of what they're used to. Of course, that's a huge difference. And even if the dancers work ever so hard, because they really try to do, it's of course never the same as moving and work in a big group and have a coach that's there and being, how do you say, inspired by each other. And of course, we are used to that dancers are gone for a long time, they are injured or they have a baby or something, but it's always a few. Now we will have a ballet company when we come back who has not worked together for 4.5 months, because we're planning to be back by the beginning of August. 4.5 months, that's a challenge.
You raise a very powerful point, Madeline, because I know from my experience in classical music, the ensemble nature, the ensemble value of working together is everything as a performer, as a musician. And with everybody separated, how does one become one? How does a group retain their integrity? 4.5 months is a very long time in terms of keeping the body in shape as well. I would like to now pass the microphone to Gary Trinda for his response as well to our first question. Gary, one moment. I need to unmute. Voila.
There is an ecology through which dance survives, and dancers in particular thrive. And those principles are around a theatre and space and music and an orchestra and choreography, and of course the interaction above all with an audience, a live audience. So right now that ecology is completely devastated and broken down. And I think what it has created for us, like any seismic shift, there was an application of ingenuity and adaptation, which dancers particularly are resourceful at. And it was very interesting that the global dance community galvanized so quickly to present online performances, streamed activity, classes, and what was in some ways quite a bleak and negative scenario was turned around, and it's been interesting the number of people who have been able to access performances who possibly ordinarily would not have been able to do so. For instance, New York City Ballet has just put out a spring digital season. So from here in Wellington in New Zealand, I was able to watch excellent performances taking place at Lincoln Center. So I think when you talk about what we've learned, I think my colleagues have already expressed about vulnerability, and I agree with that. But I think also we are learning a little bit more about how to redefine this art form, what the shape of the new art form is going to be as we go forward.
Thank you, Gary. I want to support this as well, because I think, yes, we're in this very difficult situation, but art, and the point of art is that there's always a response, there's always another way, there's always an opportunity for growth. And I think the importance of these debates is to look at the future rather than the current struggle. I'd like to invite Frank Anderson to say a few words on this point. And so Frank, I pass the microphone to you.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank UNESCO for doing this. I think this is really very valuable for the entire dance community in the entire world. And I want to thank Ray, Regina, for gathering all of us to this exciting event. Thank you for that. Then as other countries, of course, Denmark is also in a lockdown. And we know we're not going to have any performances before in the autumn, like Madeleine was saying. And we hope always we can do it earlier, but no guarantee on that. But speaking about what the coronavirus reveal about our art form, I think that one of the first words that spring to my mind is fragility. Because it really somehow shows how naked we are when we are not able to touch, not able to be together. How can you dance without touching? How can you feel? How can you be emotional? It's very, very difficult. And I think, of course, we talk about stage and a company and togetherness, but I think this thing will just symbol dancing together. I mean, that is going to prevent our art form. If this ban is not lifted at a certain time, then it's really like, how are we going to progress with our dance and ballet if you are going to show emotions, if you're going to be a dancer in the biggest knowing. So I could be very worried about this, and I think that is what I have seen in our art form here in Denmark and also from abroad, that we have the problem that we cannot get together. That's what I find has been revealed.
Thank you, Frank. I think I've written down immediately, dance without touching. It sounds as though, do you think is choreography changing at this point for future productions, or is everything still just too unknown for the moment about what rules and regulations might be in place?
Yeah, it is. But I mean, I still think that we have to find a way to get out of this and to work towards creating ballets, creating dances where we're not touching, but it's very, very difficult. I mean, I know choreographers already now is working on pieces about the corona, about the COVID-19. And I think that's very, very exciting. But still, I miss the touch. Everybody misses the touch.
Yeah. I'd like to pass the microphone now to Regina for your reflections on how this COVID-19 situation is impacting dance from your perspective.
First, I would like to thank Global Foundation for the Performing Arts and UNESCO for creating such an opportunity for us to share experience and change ideas. Well, the pandemic has caused significant loss of lives of people around the world and the global economic, and such losses are still increasing. The pandemic has a significant impact on the ballet world. Although many Chinese ballet companies got back to work and the dancers resumed rehearsals, all the performances are still suspended. The students of the Beijing Dance Academy have not yet returned to the campus. All related courses are conducted online. Well, the common problems of the online teaching in the past 2 months mostly appeared in the ballet class. It is impossible to see physical condition of the students clearly. The home space limits them, and it is challenging to complete all the teaching plans. Some ballet movements are difficult to achieve at home, such as jumping, pirouette, and point work. So at the time when people in the world need to care for each other right now, and I think ballet art and the ballet dancers and the students should play their unique roles.
Thank you. We've touched on online, and there's no doubt that that will be featuring prominently in the responses to our other questions. I mean, this is what we're doing now, and bringing the world together to help respond to this is essential. Before we move on to our next question, I'd just like to point out to everybody that just for your information, that we're recording this webinar for archival purposes and for potential editing of clips and so forth. So please be aware. The other point I would mention is through the Zoom platform, it is certainly possible for audiences to present questions directly to us. And there is a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So please feel free to send, here we are. Please feel free to send through questions for either all of us or for specific panelists, and I will do my best to bring those to the field. So let's move on to our next question, which relates to the, in a sense, it's what we touched on before, but it expands it further. The question is, what can the global dance community learn from the crisis so that we are more resilient for the future? We've touched on, a couple of people have touched on that already, but let's go into a deeper dive on that topic. And I think I would like to, perhaps Frank, if you'd like to continue and we can sort of progress that line of thought that you touched on.
Yeah, no, I would. Well, I mean, what can we do? What have we learned? And what I would think about, I think we have learned that the media can be very, very helpful. And I would say if we didn't have the media, we were almost lost for these months, because we have learned very fast to use the media. Nothing can replace the stage. I mean, let's just face that. Nothing can replace it in that sense. But if we don't have the stage to perform at, then I think that the media is really, really helpful. And like people, I think it was Nina saying also, or Matt Lan, that we're very vulnerable. And of course, yes, we are, because the stage is our playground. The stage is our media. But you can choose, which everybody have done very fast, to use the media, the social media, any kind of media to bring out our art form.
I agree. I'm just responding to one of the questions that is, we have quite a few actually, but one of the questions that's most relevant to this specific question is, I'm sorry, I cannot say this person's name, but the question is as follows. During the epidemic, there was a wave of dance short film creation. What do you think of ballet entering the public view through short video in this epidemic? So in a sense, it's what you're touching on, Frank. Short performances are appearing. Perhaps there's more to come. Nina, oh, sorry, Frank, please continue.
Yeah, no, I just want to say one fast thing, and that is also that, yes, you're right, small dances has appeared, and I think that's really wonderful. And you can actually see that some of them are two people dancing together, but it's because they're either married or they're living together.
Yes.
Which is really wonderful that somebody can do it in that way, because then you are allowed to touch and to express and show. So that has been very good of the clips I've been able to see on the Facebook and the internet.
I'd like to pass to Nina. Nina, as a dancer and director, how is this managing for you, the dance without touching, and the response to this question?
Sorry, I want to say two things. So because I'm directing also school and company in Georgia. So, you know, we learn to be together. We learn to understand each other. So all world, one day in the same situation. Can you believe this? So one day we all stopped. No cars in the street. We cannot go out. So somehow we learn how fragile we are, like Frank says, really. But same time, maybe it's wrong, but I'm very positive. So it cannot go like that. So we always have some bacteria. We always have, during our histories, lots of things. But life comes back. So I'm sure, so after 2 months or 3 months, anyway, life will come back. We cannot continue to do our job without contact, like sport, like football. How you can think to play football without crushing or touching each other? Just play ball in the home, in the room. I mean, it's impossible. We are like this same situation. I think, of course, we can choreograph something like new modern ballet without touching, but classical ballet is pas de deux or something. Anyway, we need to touch. Anyway, we need to split with audience our, you know, like they say, inside feeling. So I'm sure it will be gone and we come back on stage normal way like it was. But we need to wait, patient. We need to little bit wait to make this happens. Maybe in September, but anyway, life will come back, definitely.
Thank you. And how do you, in the meantime, how do you maintain the momentum? How do you maintain in your ensemble or your school? How do you maintain the physical aspect?
You know, this is what today in the internet, it's absolutely full of like classes, full of pilates or workouts. So everybody try to work out themselves. Thanks God I'm stopped dancing 1 year, so I don't need it to be in the good shape. But everybody try. I help also some dancers to do. We have classes. This is very limited. We are very limited in the space in the house, but we all try to do something else. And positive energy, it's so important. And we see how we love more each other, because today we cannot go out, or we cannot fly to see Frank in Denmark, but I think we are learning how we like each other, or we are totally independent and we don't need anybody. A lot of things it's good also, you know. So families together. I never stay in my house 2 months, so it's amazing. So like I think wives and husbands now know each other more than before, because everybody's running. So children see us more. It's also good things, because we're always running around and we are running a turn. So something is good. So we need to be positive, to come back and work, maybe without, you know, like without thinking about something else. Just now, what kind of situation we have today. So we need to go and work.
Madeline, I'd like to return to you and your response to our second question, and I'll just repeat the question if people are joining us now who weren't with us at the beginning. The question is, what can the global dance community learn from this crisis so that we are more resilient for the future?
Well, I feel that we have learned that we keep on saying that we are very vulnerable, and we have learned that there are many similarities in the world, how to handle a situation like this, but also many differences. I mean, some countries are really restrictive what they allow, and others are more open. And I think, like also someone touched, that the biggest challenge is how we find our way back. Because again, dance is so physical, and we are told everywhere that we shouldn't be so close. How can we tell the dancers that they have to get close again without them being scared? And when we talk about that we can't be close, and Frank touched this subject, should we just skip the whole old repertoire, which is based, many opera houses, that's our base, and it's really, we are dancing in couples, we are dancing close. One thing I have learned from this situation is that we really need each other, and we can learn so much from each other. And the artistic director of the Dutch National Ballet, Ted Branson, he already in the very, very beginning, he started a small email chain to some artistic directors, and it has now grown, and we are about 100 artistic directors from all over the world keeping in touch. And I think it's great. We are sharing ideas, we're learning from each other, and we are supporting each other, because it can be quite lonely, and especially we are not educated for this. We are mostly former dancers. So, you know, to handle a crisis like this is, whoa, it's good to have each other. And the more we learn, of course, the more we can prepare for next time something like this happens, because more and more I think we hear that this is not, unfortunately, the last time we experience something like this. The most important, I think, is that I feel like the ballet world became more like one team working together. And I think this is a fantastic, this thing with exchanging ideas and inspire each other. It has never been this strong before. It's always been there, but now it's really, really strong. And for the first time, I think, yeah, it's very, very special. And for the ballet companies who survive the crisis, that I hope that this team feeling will really stay. So I also feel that we learn something every day, new ideas how to continue then to perform. Shall we, like Nina say, divide the company in two, so we always have one team that can work in case we have a case in team A? Can we still, while we're waiting for the test results in team A, can we perform with team B? That would be like 3 days before we have an answer. And then Frank also touched this with that now people who are dancing, who are living together in their private life, they can then dance together. So will we artistic directors now become matchmaking or armor out with our arrows, making people fall in love? So those we want to dance on stage, we make them live together in the future. What will it be?
It is gone. Madeline, you're in a situation where, as you touched on, you're involved with the Opera House as well. And so you're also in one of the other situations where you've got to think about your audience too. How do you keep an audience engaged during this period of lockdown? It's one thing for the dancers and the production of new works, but how does your organization maintain, not just financially, but how does it maintain, how does it stay in touch with your loyal community?
Well, we have also, like everyone else, we have something called Stage 24, where we are streaming all our productions. So that's great. And we have had amazing response, like someone else also talked about that. Wow, the interest is really big. And I think this is something we can build on. We also actually released our tickets for next year, and the support we got from our audience to buy these seasonal tickets, it's amazing. So it's warming, and it feels like we all realized how much we need.
Thank you. Gary, you're involved with teaching as well, so you're dealing with families, and safety would be very safety concerns would be very high at the School of Dance. What are your thoughts on this? On what can we learn from this situation?
Before I get to specifics about dance school, I think it's important to stress that I believe that the arts are going to play a critical role in defining the post-COVID world. And I know that when I was a dancer, it coincided with the early 80s. And at that time, we were dealing with the AIDS epidemic. And we had the same anxieties. We were losing significant choreographic voices through that time. We were losing senior artists. We were losing very fine dancers. And when I think about the fact that that was a stimulus for so much new work, and whether it be born of emotion or it was a political stance, it generated a significant amount of new material. So I think that it's important to reflect. Nina touched on the fact that, of course, we've had epidemics and there are going to be epidemics ahead of us, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that this could be a catalyst for us as opposed to a missed opportunity altogether. I think the impact also in terms of companies, I think they're going to have to look at generating possibly a new business model. I think what this has shown us is the vulnerability of relying on the big classics and the box office successes. I think the panelists here are fortunate. We are all, the companies and schools that we are associated with draw upon government funding. But I think the landscape is going to shift significantly for the smaller, medium scale companies, and also companies that I know that in America, there is a heavy reliance on philanthropy and sponsorship, which makes their position considerably more vulnerable. So I think they're going to have to consider a new business model for going forward and eliminating some of this risk and fragility. With regard to young dancers and the school, in New Zealand, we were in lockdown for 51 days, and we are just emerging out of it. 2 days ago, we took first steps to coming out of that, and on Monday, the schools opened for the first time since the lockdown on the 26th of March. So I don't have all the answers as yet, because we actually haven't reconvened the students again in the studio. But of course, there's huge excitement about the possibilities of bringing everybody back together.
Thank you very much, Gary. I'm going on Regina, and as I do so, I'm also going to put forward a question that's come through specific. It's a Chinese question, and it's related to what is happening in China. I would also like to mention that Regina is part of the Alliance International Dance Education organization. Regina, the question that's come through the chat is, will you consider wearing a mask during training? Chinese ballerinas, for example, are wearing masks to practice in class to protect themselves from breathing on one another. Is that happening at the Beijing Dance Academy at the moment?
Oh, well, because our school are not start yet. So all the students there stay home. We are doing online class right now. So because at home, so they don't need to wear masks. But yes, as a company like National Ballet of China or the Shanghai Ballet, and they start, as I said before, they start rehearsal already. And because everybody together in a big studio, and so they wear masks. I'm sure it's a little bit hard because, you know, dance already very hard, but we wear the masks, it's make much harder. But I think this is very need. As Nina, Frank, you know, everybody said before, every dancer, they need to practice every day for ballet. So even though it's hard, but we need to do this. But I think I want to say is what I learned from this pandemic situation. I think we learned how to use the media. And we have seen all kinds of videos taken by the ballet dancers in different countries during the crisis at home. Through ballet art, they sent their pursuit of optimism and health, and send their beautiful wishes and images to the global residents affected by the pandemic. And in China also, the dancers make short videos. And I want to tell you that the video, when the video showed to the public, there's millions people to watch. So I think at percent, the amount of multimedia transmission is increasing, especially the accelerated development of short video. Dance has already occupied a large part of it. So we should pay full attention to this development. And I think that ballet dancers from all over the world should cooperate closely and use dance video to make dance attract more audience. And last thing I think is in dance education, the convenience of online teaching should be used to promote more dance class, master class, and help students to access more high-level class.
You're finding it successful at the academy, the online teaching? I guess the more you're doing, the more you're perfecting ways of communicating.
Well, I think using the online class, well, spacely, room is small, so they cannot move too much. Usually what we do is only we spend more time on the bar exercises. But we can using the online class, give them more. For example, they can have more closer contact with ballet accompanist. They were talking about more music things, and they can have a chance using the, like computer meeting, and then they can talk with other peoples internationally. So I think those are all very good things.
Great, thank you. We're now moving through to our third question of the 4 questions that we have for our panelists. And the question is as follows. What are some of the biggest obstacles this health crisis has created for you as someone who travels the world teaching and staging ballets, as the director of a ballet company or the director of a professional dance school? What are the impacts on essentially quarantining? Nina, how is it for you? You're not traveling, you're at home, your family is seeing everything that you do.
I'm taking care now my garden, it's so good, I learned a new job. But frankly says, you know, one point, even for choreographer, because I have lots of friends who is choreographed, and they were so busy, crazy, you know, like they don't have any moments to think about new project. And suddenly we all stop and they say, you know, we feel this is a little bit good, so we need it, especially for choreographer. But I mean, this is also a joke about different things to do this time. But I think we all will have, especially what I say about my country, this is financially problem. So this will be most big problem for everybody. First, bring audience back to theater, and financially, why we need to talk, and maybe we need to found it more possibility to do something together. Like, I mean, lots of companies do this, but even maybe more, because today all world in a crisis financially. So, and government also not in the easy position today. Even my country also, I don't know, this will be maybe much more difficult to have like money for new productions, money for to take in more dancers in the company, because a lot of companies in the United States is just closed, dancers is free. So far, because we government company, we paid for everybody. But how long they will pay for to do nothing, to sitting home? But we are joking like this. So first time in our life, government asked to please sitting home, we will pay you, you know. But this was right like this. But people who is not paid like government and they do their own job, like private schools, of course their situation is very, very difficult. This, I think this will be problem. And for us also, we travel a lot, myself also, we're traveling a lot, I'm staging ballet, so I'm teaching. So financially it's also not so easy, because we are not sport people. We are not have millions or like this in the bank account to live, to do nothing. Of course, ballet, we are in a much more difficult situation. And even soloists, even principal ballerinas, you know, this is lot of problems. Pension is problems. So somebody who is stopped now early, what they need to do. So in the ballet world, we have lots of problems and lots of questions. So, and I don't know how we can change this.
Thank you. You've touched on a good point where the panelists today, you're right, you represent supported organizations, and there are many organizations in the performing arts that don't have government funding. And there are other parts of the world that are in very different situations to sort of Europe and the United States and parts of Asia. I am reading one of the comments that's come through on the chat line that says, I do agree with Mr. Trinda, it's time to think about the new business model for the future. So I think change is coming. Frank, I would like to pass the microphone to you for this question about restrictions in travel and restrictions in movement for you.
Okay, I just want to make a remark about with the media, because I think something, again, we learned, I said before, we learned about to use the media. But if we think about this crisis had been like 20, 25 years ago, there would have been no media. Just imagine that no Facebook, no Instagram, no social media in that sense. Of course, there'll be television, but not internet and then so and so. So, I mean, I think we're very lucky in that sense, in brackets, that the corona is here now and not many years ago. The Royal Danish Ballet that I was director for is a part of the Royal Theatre in Copenhagen, and with the Royal Opera, the Royal Symphony, and the Royal Drama. And they are screening everything they have. And it has gotten a tremendous response, because Denmark is a very small country, but it consists of a lot of islands, which means that not everybody goes to Copenhagen to see a performance, because it simply takes too long or they just don't go. But now they have the chance to see it on television. And there's been, from far away in Denmark, there's been tremendous response that finally they can get into the Royal Theatre, at least on Facebook or Instagram or on the website from the Royal Theatre. Anyway, that was my comment. Just back to restrictions on travel. Yeah, I mean, that's after I've been director, now I'm freelance. I'm staging and producing August Bonneville's ballets around the world. And I'm in a lockdown because I'm here and I cannot travel. So several productions that were scheduled is postponed. One is canceled, but several is postponed. We cannot go teaching. We cannot do anything. And I don't do that online or live, whatever, on the net. I want to be in the room with the person, with the people, to teach them exactly what it is I mean. So there's been a lot of restrictions on that, and still are.
Madeline, would you like to respond to, or do you have any thoughts about this time of restriction?
Well, first, I think when you have a big group like this, the big challenge is to keep them together, to have the company feel like a group. And for some people, this is not so important, but for many dancers, it really is. A dancer often starts very young, and the ballet company is like their family. So that has been a challenge. Of course, we did, like everyone else, the Zoom trainings and all of that. And what I did, I had like coffee with Madeline 2 times per week, where I would be available then for anyone who wanted to join. And sometimes there was a lot of dancers and sometimes there was less, but at least they had the possibility. And I'm sure they arranged their own. But that I felt and still feel that also for myself, I didn't realize how much I was so used to this big group feeling. Working in a group is really something special. But then I'm also thinking of this with travel, because we have taken it for granted. I mean, all of us are meeting all over the world constantly, and will this force us to look for choreographers, designers, stagers just within our borders? For me, that would be sad. I think we have learned so much from opening up, and it has stimulated the local or the national choreographers and designers so much to develop in different ways. So of course, I hope that this will never happen. But it's something to think about. Will we go back in time? Another thing is, I'm going back to this with I said before, maybe we will work into 2 groups if something happens, but we have to close on every time someone has a runny nose, because, you know, I'm for the moment in Finland, the winters are long, and we always struggle with colds and flus during the winter time. So then will we have to do the tests each time? I counted, it will cost 20,000 euros if we do a test each time someone had a runny nose yesterday, and we have to check the whole company. Is this even possible? I mean, we're going back to money or to resources. And then the biggest obstacle of all, of course, then I'm also going back to the audience. How can we keep the audience in the future? As much as I also love the media, and I think it's fantastic what Frank is saying, our country here in Finland, it's really long. So the same thing there, to reach those up north is not easy, and now they are enjoying everything. But those who are also close, will they become comfortable? You know, now they're so used to streaming, not only performances, but they can sit at home and enjoy the world performances they never could have dreamt of seeing before. And also we have some seats in our auditorium. We told that hopefully we can open up for 500 people in the autumn. But that's including the artists in the room. So we have around 60 people on stage, over 60 people in the orchestra pit, and 50 people working around. So we have around 300 seats left then, where we can bring in the audience. What is the economical effect of this? And should we even elaborate with the thought of not having live music, because then we can bring in another 60, 65 people in the audience. God forbid, I think growing up in an opera house, for me, live music and ballet is hand in hand and inspires each other. So I don't even want to fantasize pain, but just looking at all the different aspects. But let's say also we still decide to do these performances for 330 people in the auditorium. How will they feel? You know, you sit in this huge auditorium and you're 330 people. We all know the feeling when it's full and you're experiencing this together. It's something unique. I just pray that we will get back to it. And of course, as Gary touched before, we will, but how long will it take until we can experience this together again?
I know that you touch a really good point. I know that in some, in the classical music world, there are certain digital concerts. So will there be a new reality of concerts or performances with no audience, but just for cameras that are then broadcast? So these things are being discussed and considered across many platforms. Gary, I don't think I've asked you to respond to this question as yet. Or please jump in and feel free to add.
Well, as a school, we obviously have a duty of care to our young people. So 48 hours before we went into lockdown, I gathered all the students together and told them all to go home. And when I say go home, we had students in New Zealand who had to arrange flights to Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, Toronto, and we have a very close geographic connection with Australia. So we had a good number of students who went back to Australia as well. So the first logistical issue we had was many of them had to get on the very last flight out of the country. So we had to work very hard to help them get home. The second challenge we had was delivering the online classes, to which many of my peers have referenced, because we've had to do not only the constraint of people working in their kitchens and their bathrooms, but global time zones as well. So that was another logistical issue for us. And of course, when we went into lockdown, New Zealand closed its borders. Australia has closed its borders. Almost all countries now have closed their borders. So the challenge we have is that until a vaccine is found, the only possibility for constraining spread is to manage social behavior. So therefore, New Zealand has worked very hard to try and eliminate the problem as best we can. But of course, there is still a vulnerability. And the greatest vulnerability is if you bring people in from outside into an island community. So we're very exposed in that regard. So subsequently right now, my challenge is to reconvene students by bringing them back from these various countries whilst recognizing that the borders are not coming down. So I'm not sure when it's going to be possible to reconvene them. And the other thing on a personal note as well is, you know, New Zealand is geographically very isolated. So one of the things that within my job I have to work very hard at is exposing the school, being the ambassador for the school, presenting ourselves at various competitions, various international arenas. And currently, of course, I'm constrained from doing that as well. And I can't bring international guests into the country. So from that point of view, it's been enormously challenging. And I don't know the answers to when the border restrictions are going to change to ease that situation.
Thank you. They're very important points and take me back to, you know, from Australia, I completely understand the need of international travel for exchange. It's been everything for people, for us. I have somebody who's written on the chat that, of course, not every country has, or not every culture, or not every region has exceptional internet access or exceptional internet speeds. So, of course, that's going to affect, you know, degrees of technology and communication that that perhaps will need to be addressed at higher levels, government levels, to make sure that communication facilities are higher across the globe. I'd like to make a short jump so that we have time for some questions from the floor and move through to question 4 for our panelists, which is what are some of the measures that can be developed to support young dance students, professional dancers and choreographers beyond this challenging time? Perhaps beyond or during this challenging time, I would hasten to add. And I'd like to pass the microphone to Regina for the question. Question number 4, please.
Well, I think at this time, as we said before, how to achieve a better teaching effect online is a topic we have been studying and then practicing until now. And I think at the same time, we will also begin to research and discuss a more valuable role that online class can play in the future dance education and dance development. For example, taking online dance training and exams. And I want to share the experience that we had here for the 8 weeks. Because we had 8 weeks online ballet class already. And the teachers found that comparing to having the ballet class at studio, online teaching can give students different experience. For example, they having closer relationship and cooperation with the ballet companists. And they learned a lot of music series in more diverse ways. And the teacher can give more time to correct movements, because at home, they, the 90 minutes class, they have more time since they cannot do jumping too much. So they save time on the bar so can correct movements. And also during the repertoire class, instead of correcting the dance movements, the teachers ask students to watch ballet videos in their free time and discuss how to play the roles during the class. I think which is very important. If we are in the studio, that will never happen because we always, want to give more time to creating their movements. And moreover, I think online class allowed teachers and students to do self-study, have feedback, and online discussion. For example, for the examination, because our students, they still have examinations for the end of this semester. So our teachers suggest that we should to do online examinations and focused on bar. And all the teachers from our department, they can enter the online class and then ensure the teaching qualities. Which means they can, watch more closely. So, and I also think invite experts from all over the world to give students masterclass is also very important and very neat. So yes, I want to say we can do a lot of meaningful things and make a large impact as a union.
Excellent, thank you, Regina. Thank you. I certainly understand, certainly for countries such as Australia with a geographic distance, sometimes the online masterclass is the only feasible practical solution for exchange because it's so cost effective. We've had a very good question about how and whether you have experience with your colleagues in other parts of the world, particularly sort of the African continent, how they are managing the current situation. And I believe that I'm hoping that we will continue this series and we might be able to invite other panelists from other parts of the globe to reflect on their pressing needs and situations. Frank, how are you responding, or how are you responding to this question 4, to this situation?
That's the 4th question, or where are we?
Yeah, of what measures we can do to support young dance students at the moment.
Well, I mean, I'm agreeing very much of what Regina is saying, because I think that what we have learned from this crisis is really the force of the media. And if we are honest, we can say that before, if you went to a theater, you were not allowed to film with your phone some of the performance. And I think today shows how valuable it is that this can go out to more people. I mean, if 10 people is filming a performance and they put it out, and then 100 people is seeing that and they are sending it on, then all of a sudden you can do 100 performances and you won't reach the same amount of people. Mm. Naturally, we have this with the artistry at the same time, that it is not a live performance, because that is what is the most important. But if we don't have that, I think we have to go to bed with the media and accept them as they are and use them as much as we can to cooperate together for the benefaction of the professional dancers, choreographers, students in this situation.
It's really relevant, because I think the audience habits will be different. Our audience habits are changing as a result of this experience. And I think, therefore, that also gives us the opportunity of the incredible value of a live performance when it comes. You know, you'll be able to actually compare the overwhelming difference of being in a room with other people and experiencing a live performance. But also at the moment, we'll be able to sample things that you're right, we haven't been able to sample. And I think that's good for our art forms in general. I have a question that's come through, and I'll put this to any panelist or all of the panelists. Do you think it is a sustainable way to gain new audiences through free live streaming? Or do you think it will have an impact on the audience once we're again able to visit theatres? You know, if we give it all out, can we ever expect people to come back?
If I should say something again, then I would say yes, definitely. Definitely, I'm sure that it will have a positive impact. It also have showed the audience that we are there, and we are there for them, wherever they are. And we are not just expecting them to come to the theater, but we also can reach out to them, especially in a situation like this, where everybody in Finland and Georgia or China, they are on a lockdown and cannot go to the theater, even the theater was open. So I believe in that.
I think things are, I mean, the value of artistic expression is always going to be there. And there will be no substitute for the interaction with a live performance. But I think the other thing that's we have to be mindful of is the way that people are going to work is going to change as a consequence of this pandemic. Already, the notion of working from home is becoming the new norm. The reality of not going into your office, but having meetings through Zoom and these sort of platforms is going to become the new norm. So I think we have to be mindful that the portability of taking streamed performances, be it on your telephone, your iPad, that immediacy and that ability to transport performances very easily and readily is wonderful. I don't know that financially, though, companies could sustain that in the long term.
I also think as much the show see ballet, it will be more interest. I agree with Frank, because like football, why I always measure you, because you know they have special channel. Are we have special ballet channels in the world, in the countries? No. So, but this time So people, dancers themselves make it short video, like Regina says, funny videos, even I was there. So, and this is split round. We share it to everybody. And people, sometimes they're laughing, sometimes it's beautiful, just beautiful done. And I think media really help us to sharing our ballet world more. And I'm sure when everything will be like gone, and theater will be much more full. Beginning will be difficult, but I think it will be much more interesting because we need to explain them. Nothing same like live performance, nothing. No video, no, I mean, even perfect film, special ballet film, it doesn't give same feeling because you are with me today on stage and we created together performance. This is something magic what we have in the ballet. And our ballet is like more than 250 years old. Frank and Madeleine, you are from Sweden, you are from Denmark, you know how long live ballet have. So even during the war, people anyway go to theater. They perform outside. People want to see this. So I don't think so we will lose our audience. Maybe we are collecting them today.
And I think it's very good idea. Even though after the pandemic disappears, we still should continue using the media, you know, to educate people, especially younger children. For example, in China, the best selling ticket at the theater always for the ballet, always the Swan Lake. I was asking like mid-age, you know, audience, I said, why? And they said, you know, when I was little, I watched a movie, and in the movie, there's only 10 minutes Swan Lake. So now when I grew up, I want to see Swan Lake all the time. So I think it's very important, even though when we, you know, get back to normal life, we still need to, we should still continue for this.
Yeah, you know, and a lot of people thinking ballet is just tutu. And when they see now, so ballet is like feeling Romeo and Juliet and Manon or some different ballets, they say, oh my God, this is also ballet. So it means this time we also educate a little bit more audience about this.
It's a really interesting idea that we're shifting from you know, almost awareness to education. There's a great education opportunity as a result of this pandemic to a wider audience that we couldn't reach before, or who perhaps were interested, but because of the situation, they could go to other things. But now we've got a sort of captive opportunity of people ready to absorb because they're at home, and the diversity of opportunities is not quite as great for people to go and see tonight the orchestra, tomorrow night a play, the third night a sporting match. People, I think, are going to be more selective about their choices. Madeleine, do you think your audience will come back? It sounds as though they love your company and house. And if they're already subscribing ahead, if they're purchasing season subscriptions, I think that answers it all. I think the signs are there that despite the free streaming, the more they're seeing, perhaps the more they want to come and experience it real life.
Well, we hope so. It feels like that.
Great. There's a question about related to, do you feel, or do any of the panelists feel that streaming a performance needs to be at a certain high expensive level of production to maintain audience interest? Do you think houses or companies need to invest serious money in you know, capturing productions for release, or can low quality streaming be just as effective, or even, you know, acceptable to audiences? Would anyone like to comment on experiences with, yeah, Madeleine, please?
I think most opera houses have quite good equipment today, because we all film most of rehearsals and performances for our own use. And we have seen that we could use some of those to show, I think, but we are lucky. We are, again, government funded, so we have the equipment.
So this is I think problem in my time. So like Frank says, all theater was not allowed to film anything. What I have, I think, from Denmark, because that time Denmark have this possibility to film, and all of my performances around the world, in London or SAC, it's really not done in the good quality video. It's just like fans more. So, and this is problem, I think really it's very important. So today opera houses, because it's also our must have good quality cameras to film, because it's also history of theater. So I hope so this will be continue to have good quality. Like today it comes very, very popular to watch ballets in the cinema. First time when I hear this, I was shocked how it's possible to watch ballet opera in the cinema. But other point, this is very good, because I don't have chance. I don't have money to go to New York or Denmark or somewhere to see good performances. And today people buy tickets to go to cinema, sitting very comfortable and watch and listen opera in the good big screen. So, this is life really changed.
Well,
Thank you. Oh, sorry, please, Frank.
Yeah, no, I think it's very interesting this year with good videos or bad videos or just putting something out, because I think that when this crisis is over, we'll hopefully get people back in the theater, get people back to buy the tickets, to be there, to watch the live performance. But at that time, I think it's very important not to forget what we're sitting here and talking about, because I think it's necessary to invest in being prepared for the next crisis. God forbid it ever comes, but be ready with maybe better videos, maybe thinking about how we can use the media to be ready if something happened like this again. So it's not just like, oh, we're gonna put some videos on. Even I still think that there'll be more audience coming in. I think it will work as a teaser. Even it's maybe a little lower quality, it will work as a teaser for the people that have nothing else to do but to watch the social media.
Yeah.
And then we can have a good commercial about that.
I have a question that relates to this, and I think we can fit this question and one more. But this ties into a topic that obviously I've had a lot of experience with, and I think it's very relevant to assisting young artists. I put it to the panelists and those with great experience. What will happen to international competitions and capacity international programs? Will there be different scopes of criteria or qualification or aspects in regards to selection? I know we have some panelists with great competition experience. If you put your competition hats on, would you like to respond?
I think this will be very difficult, because it's nobody travel now, and to have competitions today, this will be very difficult. And also for young dancers, because lots of dancers go to do auditions for different countries, because like in my country, we have just like opera house, professional ballet, that's it. But so people love to go other countries to do auditions, and now it will be for young dancers very, very difficult to find a job. So we need to wait when world will be open these flights or something, so young one can go and to do the auditions.
Madeline or Gary, perhaps the criteria will change in this current period. Perhaps online auditions will be the only way forward for a short period of time.
I have actually done online auditions where people have been in other countries, and they've danced in a studio, and I've hired them. So we have started, and right now we are preparing a ballet, which is going to be a world premiere next year. And the choreographer sits in San Francisco, his assistant in Chicago, and we are here in Finland rehearsing. So media, as Frank is saying, we are using it more and more. I don't know if it's ultimate, but at least for now, it's a huge help.
Mm.
And I can only say from the point of view of competitions, I know that people are moving to online competitions, but I haven't experienced it yet. So I don't know how radical it would be in a shift in terms of criteria, nor how one would go through a sort of what one would use in terms of a reasonable assessment.
Well, I mean, also you can say that Regina is running one of the biggest competitions in China, and it was supposed to be in October, and it's already postponed, not cancelled, but postponed. So, I mean, I think it's very hard to predict how the competition is going to be in the future. I think it's very hard. Maybe Regina has a view on that.
Maybe inside competition, like just from Beijing, is possible, but how people can travel to come and other ones, like international, it will be really hard. And to do internet competition, I don't think so. This will be real competition, you know, because it's so difficult. We have this example for all who is artistic director. You see video, they are so nice, and they come to show themselves in the studio, and you are very disappointed. You know, it's not the same like they're sending video, the same feeling like you see them in the live. You know, I have this problem several times. So I don't know if it's a video competition. Maybe possible to do for fun, but I don't think so with professional. So it's really hard.
Well, I think this is a perfect way of saying that depending on how long the new normal is in place, or how long the pandemic keeps us restricted from movement, perhaps many things are going to have to be reconsidered beyond the production and performance of normal houses. But I would also like to, I'm delighted to also say that Regina, we're working to continue the discussion that we've started today, and that I'm delighted that we'll be looking forward to forging a global ballet league related to continuing these discussions as a direct result of today's webinar, bringing the world together to continue these topics and opportunities for dance beyond the pandemic and within the Global Foundation for the Performing Arts. So I think a league and having these discussions as regularly as possible keeps us connected and up to date for whenever we really get back to normal. But I think it's always going to be a new normal, and I think I'm delighted to hear many positive moves forward and hopes for optimism as a result of moving through this pandemic. We are 1 minute to go, so I would like to offer the floor to any panelists to say one more very short piece, if you wish. Is there anything you would like to add before we wrap up? Any final words of wisdom?
I want to just say, we need to share our message for everyone. We need to support. We need to support for all these, because each person come to see it. This is our sponsor. We need to support for government, and we need to support to continue to be same level. So we need to sharing our job, because I'm sure people needed ballet. Ballet is never die. We just needed to keep this in a good shape and high level.
Thank you, Nina. That's exactly what the point of this exercise has been today. And it's exactly what the ResiliArt movement is all about. It's giving visibility to artists, performing artists, and artists in general. So this is exactly the point of the discussion, and we'll continue with another webinar in the coming weeks. So once again, I would just really like to thank you all, the panelists, for joining us today at various times in various parts of the world. Frank, Anderson, Nina Ananashvili, Yuri Zu, Madeleine Orna, and Gary Trinda. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us. And I'd like to also thank Sari Matilda Mashimura from UNESCO for joining us to be part of this webinar. We will take points. I've been writing notes during this incredibly useful meeting, and we will share thoughts and decisions made during this meeting to you and beyond. And we look forward to continuing to work on behalf of dancers and bring them back to audiences in the future. So thank you everybody for joining us, and we shall convene again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Regina, very much. All of you, thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.